All right. I started some of these guys a few minutes ago as I was working on just getting some camera things hashed out. I've got this second camera here. Hi! Set up the first time, so we'll see how that goes. These are drawings that I slapped together yesterday while I was hanging out with my daughter. I just sat down for a few minutes while she was watching something on Netflix. This cute little puffin show. And I just took a really light marker and I started drawing whatever came to mind, these random things. So I got a couple pages of these actually. I think it'll probably be productive because when I'm drawing with something that's really loose like that, I seem to put very little pressure on myself, which for me seems to be one of the biggest issues with just like getting the work done is I overpressure myself. So I just started kind of drawing whatever I ran into and whatever popped into my brain, and so I've got some really interesting things here. On this page, we've got the kind of this, it looks like a TV with like some kind of reptilian face coming out of it, and then maybe some arms and whatnot, like a Power Ranger enemy. This guy right here looks a little bit like a mandrill with some like fire hair. So I'm having fun with that. This little dragony guy down here, it's got an axolotl head, and then down below that you can only see a little bit of, kind of looks like a frog of some kind. So potentially a new sketching strategy or mechanism, but so far it's been rather entertaining. This guy is intriguing to me. I don't know exactly how I'm going to solve some of these issues down in there, but we'll get to them when we get to them. I'll probably start doing some more referential stuff here pretty soon. These last couple weeks have been a little bit crazy, and so a lot of these sketching sessions have been pretty unscripted, relaxing stuff for me, things that I can do without too much prep. And the bonus to that is that I've gone into them with very little concept or idea of what I was doing, and in so doing, there's been really low stress levels for me. So some of the stuff's actually turned out really interesting. The deer guy I've been working on has been kind of fun, and then the ones before that, all the dragons and dinosaurs, were pretty entertaining. So yeah, a lot of times it's just whatever keeps me moving. I used to religiously track all the time that I put into my art until very recently. And I got behind maybe starting about a month ago, and I was not good about recording all of the time that I was putting in. And I had this thought a couple weeks ago where I felt guilty for a few minutes and thought maybe I should go back in, and I could probably do that. You know, my computer, my iPad, my phone even, all these devices track, you know, approximately how much time, you know, you've spent on your apps and whatnot each day. And then I kind of came to the conclusion that, like, there's not much of a point. Like, I used to do that. I used to keep track of all my minutes. And really what it was to make sure I was doing it. In some regards, there was a little bit of an idea of, well, as I'm teaching other people and as I'm building video content, I want to be able to tell people approximately how much time each week I'm putting into things and approximately how much time it took to get to whatever levels of proficiency I hit. And that does make sense. I don't think that's a bad idea, but the keeping myself working part is not mattering as much. I'm drawing pretty much every day right now. The only times I'm not is when I'm out late, you know, or there was an event or a funeral or something like that. But the vast majority of the time, like, I'm drawing every day or painting in some capacity, and it's just now become, again, part of my daily routines. You know, I will often, at the end of the day, we'll have dinner, we'll get our daughter down, and then I will be like, okay, I gotta go work for a few, and I'll come down for 45 minutes, half an hour, whatever, and I'll just draw. And sometimes I'll get on Discord with some buddies, and we'll talk smack, talk about video games, about Star Wars, whatever. And I'll draw that way. Sometimes I'll put on some YouTube videos. Sometimes I'll put on a podcast of some kind. Sometimes I will put on some music, especially if it's been a day that's had a lot of noise. Every once in a while, I'll just sit and draw without really thinking about anything and without listening to anything. That's pretty rare these days. Most of the time, I'll try to do something. I'm going to zoom in here. But it's become now, and it's been this way in the past before, but I think that now it's just much better than it has been a lot of times in the past. It's part of my routine. Like, I'm going to do it each day because I want to, because it's normal, because I want to keep growing, I want to keep progressing. And some of that's linked to the making videos. A lot of that's just me being me, and I'm never going to be as good as I want to be. I'm always going to need to keep progressing in some capacity to just feel okay about my artwork. And that's not a terrible thing. It is frustrating sometimes. But I also think that, wanting to be better than you are is frustrating. Wanting to be better than you are right now is frustrating. And it's understandable. I think there's a lot of good, a lot to be said about enjoying the journey and enjoying where you are. But frankly, like, I want to be better, and I'm not patient. I would like to be better now, please. And especially with drawing and painting and even the video editing stuff, none of it is very quick. None of it is stuff that you improve at very quickly. I found that with most artistic things, you can find good lessons, you can practice a lot, but you kind of solve problems and you have big batches of growth when you run into issues. So you try drawing a cat and you go, I don't know how to draw a cat, and so then you look it up and you spend some time practicing it, and that's usually when the improvement kind of comes. With the video editing stuff, I'll make a video, I'll make 6, 7, 8 videos, and then I'll run into an issue that's been driving me nuts on something about the audio, something about the camera angles, about the quality. And then I'll do some research, I'll practice some things, I'll spend some time working on it, and then all the subsequent videos are just a little bit better. And I think anything artistic that way, anything that is a skill, seems to function that way. There's been times in the past with playing guitar where I've been like, why is my wrist hurting so much? And, you do a little bit of research, you practice, you try different positions on your hand, you try having your wrist in a different way, and that can help. But it seems like, at least for me, that issues are often what lead to improvement. I spend some time trying to figure out how to solve a thing that's agitating me. An example right here might be, maybe I'm unhappy with this little mandrill guy, and so then I go, draw a whole bunch of primates, which would be great. That would be a totally good way to solve that issue. I'm not particularly upset about him right now. But I think I will start doing some videos that way. I'll start doing some study sessions, so I'll probably have like a secondary kind of sketching session video. Thank you to those of you who have been watching these, though. I was very surprised to see how well received they were when I started doing the sketching sessions. I started it for a couple of reasons. One, I thought that it might be beneficial to other people. Two, it is an excuse for me to do the work and continue to do the work, which you keep hearing me talk about. But I didn't expect them to be as appreciated as they have been, and that's really encouraging. And so thank you to those of you who are listening right now. I love hearing from you. I love just seeing that people are enjoying it, that people are liking it. And I hope that this is something that can be done for a long time. So, yeah, thank you. And if there's anything specific that you would like me to talk about, you would like me to work on, I am more than happy to engage. So if there's anything specific that you would like me to draw or issues that you would like me to talk about. My specific experience, as I mentioned before, is from teaching. I spent a couple years at university getting a teaching license and an ed degree, and then had the privilege of going into and starting a charter school. And from there, I taught for 11 years. And started off teaching K through 8th grade. And then the next year was just middle and high school. And then after that was pretty much middle and high school until I was done. Kindergarten was hard. Goodness. Kindergarten teachers are like saints. It's such a hard job. Because you're not really teaching content. You're teaching how to be a student. The amount of patience that is required is just immense, and I am not a particularly patient person. There are things that I'm patient with, but I think I'm mostly just impatient with inefficiency. And for better or worse, little kids are just terribly inefficient. And it's reasonable. It's not saying I don't like little kids, but little kids are just not particularly efficient at anything. They're learning how to human. So that makes it kind of hard. It sounds a little heartless maybe, but hopefully it's not. They're just they just take a lot of energy. And when you're trying to teach a kid how to feed themselves, like, they're not good at it. It's hard. The fine motor skills take a long time to develop, and a lot of kids struggle with it, and you have to clean a lot, and that's the thing, is like, I didn't care about most of those things. I didn't care about doing the extra dishes or wiping the floor off or vacuuming. I'm really good at vacuuming these days. Very much in the habit of doing that several times a week, sometimes even several times a day, depending on what we were having for food. But it's just the like, everything taking so long to improve. And I have to admit that agitated me a lot until I had my own kid. And then then I didn't really care very much. That foot is so ugly. I think I might not have been concentrating enough while I was doing it. Let's see if I can kind of mess around a little bit. It just doesn't feel three-dimensional at all. It feels totally flat, whereas this one feels like these edges kind of come up on the edge. This one does not at all. Maybe I'll just cut it off. I'm not 100% sure how I'm going to fix that, because I did it with... I might just black that one out later. I'm not sure. That's pretty bad. It happens. The convenient excuse would be to blame it on the fact that I'm recording right now, but that's probably not actually true. Yeah, that was one of the funniest things about having a kid, is I was never a huge fan of babies. I'd hold somebody's kid for a few minutes and be like, okay, I'm kind of bored. Can I give them back to you? But I would watch other people just hold kids for, an hour or two. And of course, me over contemplating everything, I would just sit there and, is there something wrong with me? Like, why don't I like this? Why am I not like everyone else? And I kind of wondered, when we were having a kid, am I going to feel the same way with my own child? And, I'm happy to report that when it was my kid, it was totally different. Totally different. I could happily sit for hours with her, just holding her, rocking her, doing nothing, and I was totally content. Now, I thought maybe just having a kid had changed that about me, and, like, now I like them. And nope, that's not true. Because I've tried since with other people who have had kids, and it's like, maybe. And no, I'm still not a huge fan. I really like my kid, and I think that's Maybe that's just how that works. Maybe that's just how that works. I really like my kid. I don't find her boring. I don't, I don't have the issues that I've had with finding other kids boring and things like that in the past. So that's a good thing. It's a positive thing. It'd be really a bummer if that was the case with my own kid, but she's a delight. Is she super easy all the time? No, but I mean, what kid is? She's got a ton of personality, and she's almost 4, so she has very strong opinions about everything. I really don't have a whole lot of idea what's going to happen with this guy. Because unlike the other two, where the drawing kind of had some backbone that gave me some tips and some hints on how the issues could be solved and what it could be, this thing was just weird when I was drawing it, and it's still weird. So I'm really unsure what this thing's going to be. We'll just keep playing, though. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. I really like working with these loose, light value lines, and then later on going in and defining things. Because as you might be able to see, and the contrast might be hard, but there's some light lines back here, and I didn't stick to them at all. And that's one of the things that I really like about it, is they allow you to basically see if what you were thinking about doing will work out the way you want it to. And that's actually one of the best things about sketching. Pen is really unforgiving that way, and I love that quality about pen, but one of the best parts of sketching is that you get to kind of figure out if something's going to work or not. You can darken some things in as you decide to clarify details, but prior to that, you don't have to. I have not been working a lot digitally in the last, honestly, probably like the last month. Need to start doing that. Would you all be interested in seeing these same kind of things with digital art? If I was to do like some sketching sessions or study sessions or work sessions or whatever on my computer, would you guys be interested in that? Let me know. I've been using Photoshop for a very long time, but in the last month or so, a buddy of mine turned me on to Krita. And I have to say, I've been blown away with the quality of that program. There's something about it that just feels much, much better than Photoshop. It feels like it's much more naturally developed to be an art program. And I think that's actually true. Photoshop, by and large, was designed to be a photo editing software. And so, yes, you can draw on it. Yes, it's still the industry standard from everything I can see. But there's a lot of things that I think people work around, and a lot of things that are clunky about it that people have just accepted. And I don't know what it is, but something about me, I've always struggled with drawing digitally because it just doesn't feel natural. How the tablet feels and how my stylus feels on the tablet, things just don't feel right to me. And it's been a struggle pretty much the whole time. And I've been working on tablets in some capacity since 2003? No, my dad got my first drawing tablet when I was younger than that. So I've been using drawing tablets in some capacity probably for 27 years. But I've never felt good about them until... I just accidentally made that a little bit too far. That should be okay, though. I've never felt great about them until my iPad, which finally had the pressure sensitivities, and then Krita. Procreate I've used on the iPad a bunch too, and it is a lovely program. Lovely program. Very well built. And again, feels far more natural than using Photoshop. I still use Photoshop very frequently. Now I use it mostly for thumbnails and arranging and stuff like that. I do not use it nearly as much for drawing or painting. And I haven't been doing like oil paint. I haven't done any oil painting in a very long time. I've talked about this several times on the channel, but oil painting is... I'm not bad at it, but man, does it stress me out. It just stresses me out. And I know I should do it, but stuff like this is much less stressful and pretty fun. And I know that the oil painting stuff does well, but... And it's one of the art forms that I can actually like sell locally. But it's just not as enjoyable. And I think I know why. I think that I haven't put enough time into it in a single set of sessions in a long time to make sure that the quality is reliable. And so it always feels like a gamble. And this is too, but it's also like the stakes are lower. In digital, like the stakes are super low. Which actually I find can get you in a different kind of problem, in different kind of trouble. Because when you know that there's no such thing as a mistake, you can take really stupid risks with your artwork. Or you can just kind of have this weird like decision paralysis because you can do anything. It's kind of odd. And maybe not everybody struggles with that, but I know I need to put more time into digital because it's just so malleable that especially for all these ideas and things that I want to get out of my head, it's just going to be the best way to do that. Frankly, digital I haven't been doing lately just because I keep forgetting. Last month or so has been a little nuts. Oh, my back is getting tight. That guy's cool. I have no idea what he is, but he's kind of fun. Ugh. It might be too late in the day to have coffee, but that might also be like the stupidest thing I've said in a long time. I do drink too much coffee. Although not as much as when I was teaching. I went through so much coffee when I was teaching. Often a pot a day on my own. I ended up in... not the hospital technically, but I went to my doctor once because my heart rate got up so high and stayed there for about 48 hours. So it was like the same heart rate that I would have when I was working out. And I ended up going to my doc and wasn't sure what was going on with my heart and was a little scared. And it ended up being a mix of my caffeine levels and stress. So I have cut back on my caffeine intake in the last couple of years. I try to convert to tea in the afternoons, which, yes, I know tea still has caffeine. But a lot of the tea that I drink in the afternoons now is just green tea, matcha, which my wife says smells like and tastes like fresh cut grass. She might not be wrong. I like the strong flavors. I like really strong teas. I like really strong cheeses. I like really strong meats. I like strong flavors. Like, I like those old cheeses that have like salt crystals and stuff in them because they sat around so long. It's great. My favorite cheese is a Spanish cheese called Manchego. It's a sheep milk cheese. And it's delightful. We used to have sheep. We don't anymore. We sold our flock. But we used to have sheep. One of my old bosses used to just shake his head sometimes with me. He's like, "You are one of the weirdest artists I know. You're so creative, and yet you've got this weird engineering brain that can do all these administrative things, and then like you also have chickens and sheep and whatnot at your house." Which he was a lovely older fella, and he was definitely one of those guys from the day and age where like people fit into very, very clearly defined boxes. So I don't get so agitated about it. Sometimes my wife gets a little agitated on my behalf because she's like, artists aren't one-dimensional. It's not like you're an artist and therefore you don't do all these other things. But I'm sure some of you find that in your lives as well, that sometimes we get pigeonholed as artists. We get pigeonholed into, well, you're an artist, so you do this. I think we've all encountered that, right? Like, we've all encountered somebody in our life who has said, oh, well, you're an artist, and thus, and made some pretty huge assumptions about who we are and what we do and what drives us. And it's easier that way, I think, for most people. But the reality is, like, all artists are different. We're all different creatures. We've got some things that are similar, sure, but we're like kind of uniformly weird in some ways. Every once in a while you meet an artist that's almost weird because they're so normal. But most of us are just kind of strange in our own ways. But we're very diverse. Like, we're a very diverse group. But humans, by their nature, want to define things, and so just like everyone else ever, we end up getting put into categories. Should I make the nipples pink? I'm making the nipples pink. We're also gonna give him some pink on his face. He does have some mandrill-like qualities, which I'm rather enjoying. Mandrills are so cool. So cool. Freaking terrifying. But cool. I think they have bigger teeth, bigger fangs than lions. Somebody can fact check me on that, but I'm pretty sure that mandrills have bigger fangs than lions. Like, what a crazy creature. Man, I love all the weird animals. They just make life better. This guy looks very strange now. Kind of wanted him to have some dark skin on his face. to highlight these bright colors. And I've got this really weird guy. I feel like I would go with like orange for the eyes, but his his fur is orange, so maybe we go kind of like a really light eye. That's just gonna look like the same color of everything else on his face. Oh well. Oh well. I didn't care anyway. What color is that? Carmine? Yep, that'll work for another layer as we go with more reds in this. That'll be fine. These sessions when I spend so much time sitting and hunched over my desk, my back hurts. I'm getting old. Probably am a lot older than a lot of you guys who are listening. I guess 36 at the time of this recording. Old is simultaneously just a state of mind and also like a real thing. Like you do actually start to feel things get, break down a little bit. And primarily for me, I started noticing aging when I didn't heal as fast. That was the big thing. Remember noticing it on my 20th birthday. I was out with a friend, lots of shenanigans, and we were running around the house that we were living, and I slipped on some, it wasn't like cobblestone, but kind of like that loose composite gravel that is sometimes used to make pathways. And I slipped on it, and I took a rock in my side and kind of gouged a hole. Laughed about it, moved on. But I noticed a couple days later that it hadn't healed. Entirely, at least. It was still in the process of healing. And I remember at that moment thinking like, oh, this is weird. Normally this would have healed already and I'd be moving on. But I remember thinking at that moment, like, oh, this has got to be it. Like, I'm getting older. Things don't heal like they used to. They don't heal as fast. And that's more or less been true. I'm a bit older than that now, obviously. I was 16 years ago. But by and large, it's just slow. Slowly, your body starts to repair a little bit less. You need a little bit more sleep, things like that. I'm happy to report to those of you who are not there yet that it is not catastrophic. It doesn't happen super fast. If you take decent care of your body, it doesn't fall apart on you overnight. So, I'm still doing all right. Still able to keep up with my kid, which is saying a lot. She's such an active critter. This guy's goofy. I like him. Definitely, though, like I mentioned earlier, I'm sitting here like, man, I need to go do a little bit of research on primates because I would like to be able to draw them a little bit better than this and leave a little bit less up to chance. There was a lot of stuff on this where it's like, well, I hope that works out. And like this leg over here, I'm still not 100% sure what's happening with it. It just doesn't particularly look bad. But I still didn't quite know what I was doing. Kind of thought this red might be a little darker than it is. Trying to get in some of these darker tones, but some of it's working, some of it's not. This is a mixed media sketchbook. It's been great for most of the stuff that I've done in it. It takes the brush pen alright, it takes gouache and watercolor pretty well. But I will say that when I've done my brush pens on Bristol paper, I find that much better, a much more pleasurable experience. I don't have a good Bristol sketchbook right now that is small size like this. My Bristol sketchbook is massive, and when I put it on this desk, it takes up the whole desk. And then I can't really show you right now. I'll show you some other time. But if I put it up here, it takes up the whole desk. And so I need to get a smaller one. This is just a pretty normal sketchbook, I think. Yeah, 9 by 12 inch on this sketchbook. But I'm kind of cruising through this one, though. I'm hoping to finish it pretty soon. Then I can do a sketchbook tour of the whole thing, because there's a lot of stuff in here that I worked on prior to doing the sketchbook sessions, and then things in between the sketchbook sessions. Some of my late night drawing I don't record. It's just like, this is just for me detoxing, but I'll still show everything at some point. But yeah, I want to finish this one off because I have like 6 active sketchbooks right now, so I'm trying to finish some of them, which then gives me an excuse to get other ones and new ones. And if you're anything like me, getting a new art toy is always fun. And I certainly want to. I certainly want to get some new art toys. There's no one. I want to darken in some of this chin business. So on most of the body, I managed to keep the 3-dimensionality okay, but I feel like on the face, I lost a little bit of it. So I'm going to try with the pen to sculpt some of that back in. Not sure how detailed this is for y'all. I don't think really want to zoom in again. I think adding some more hatching underneath here will help too. I think right now, honestly, I need to let that guy dry a little bit. Things are kind of wet still from the myriad of colors and stuff that I've overlaid, so I need to give him just a few minutes before he'll be ready for some touch-ups. Maybe we jump into Captain Turtlefish over here. Whoop, sorry. See what this guy's all about. This guy has like 4 legs, 2 mechanical arms that I seriously contemplated making claws, like a crab. These weird spike things coming out. I really don't know what he is. Kind of, as I'm starting to to draw him in, I'm kind of thinking, like, maybe some of these components are biological, and some of these components are not. The green stuff I'm kind of mentally thinking is, like, that's biological, and then the other stuff is not, so let's just kind of roll with that for now. That's funny. This is a gray, but to me, it definitely looks green right now because it's right next to the green, and it's a pretty neutral color. My brain is telling me, like, oh, that's definitely a darker tone. I don't think science fiction stuff will ever not be cool. The stars will always be cool. Getting out into space will always be cool. I mean, Star Wars was so successful partially because it mixes, like, the two greatest genres of all time, which is fantasy and science fiction. And George Lucas just did a wonderful job of putting those together into the structure that he did. But I have a book somewhere, maybe sometime I'll grab it, that is hypothetically the first science fiction novel ever written. And it's like ancient Greece or Rome. It's very, very old. But it was evidently the first text about aliens coming down. Unless you were to take, biblical and religious texts to be something similar. But that could be a whole other discussion. But it seems like it's an idea that we as humans have been fascinated with for forever. Like, that is something that we are super fascinated by. This idea that we're not alone, the idea that there's other things out there. And, I mean, how can you not be? How can you not be fascinated by that? We know so little. And even if we are, like, the only critter out there in the universe, like, it's probably good for our human ego to not acknowledge that. It's probably good for our human ego to continue to be like, nah, like, there's probably something smarter than us. There's probably something that some other group of beings who can traverse the stars. I think that's one of the wonderful things about sci-fi, is that it often explores the ego of humanity and how we really need to be a little bit more humble. That we know so much less than we think we do. It's difficult for me to think back to when I first fell in love with sci-fi. Because I think, frankly, as far back as I have memories, it's a part of my story. One of the first sci-fi video games I played would have been, like, Metroid. And Mech Warrior. Yeah. Super Metroid and Mech Warrior would have been two of my very first video games that were that way. Star Wars, obviously. My dad was a huge fan of The Last Starfighter, which is an old sci-fi movie, I think from the 70s. And it's pretty good. It's pretty good. I mean, it's nothing, like, absolutely revolutionary, but it's pretty enjoyable. If you've never heard of it, it's probably worth a watch. If you can tolerate very, very early... which one is this? I want... Uh-oh, did I get tangled up? No, I want light gray. If you can tolerate, very, very, very early CGI. Which is, all we had for most of my life. Toy Story. Oh my goodness. Toy Story is the movie that really changed things that way. Absolutely revolutionary. And still good. You know, you can still go back and watch Toy Story 1 and it's still pretty fantastic. That was one of the coolest things about Star Wars, though, is they didn't use, they couldn't really use CG back then. It didn't really exist. What they did use, though, is they used miniatures. And they did this on the Lord of the Rings series as well. And I think it's frankly one of the reasons why they are so good and why they still hold up even now, even though it's been so long. I think it's part of the reason that the Rings of Power didn't look as good, even though they had way more money than the Lord of the Rings series did, is the miniatures are real. And when you're doing CG, you're always trying to create real things artificially. And technology has improved dramatically, and it is so cool. But it's not the same. And I don't know that it ever will be. This guy's kind of turned out cool. I kind of like him. He's real weird, but I kind of like him. Let's shade the side of his face there. Let's give him some... Give him a red eye. Ooh, now he looks like a red-eyed tree frog. How exciting. Guess there's a frog on the bottom of this page, too. Have to get to him at some point. The miniatures, though, they make a huge difference. And I've been contemplating for a while getting like some nice clay and starting to work on trying to build little miniatures and little models. I never have done it before. It's always tantalizing and exciting. I have a feeling it's probably one of those things that is, obviously way harder than you think. And so I would probably buy the stuff to do it, get really excited, and then... Excuse me. And then be a little bit discouraged because it's going to be harder than I want it to be. That's kind of like everything. I mean, that's like everything worthwhile in life. Everything worthwhile in life is a little bit harder than you want it to be. Excuse me. Sorry. Ooh, that's fun that the clouds and the sun are having some kind of fun game out there. And so the light in here is going back and forth and back and forth. I don't usually record during the middle of the day. I would like to tell you it's because of that. It's mostly just the lighting becomes harder, but I didn't think about the fact that the light would actually like alter as we're doing this. Not sure the red was a great choice, but I mean, we did it, so here we are. Well, now I want to go watch Lord of the Rings. Cool. I like that guy. How strange, but kind of cool and fun through this process. This guy, I don't think I should color him pink. I think that would be asking for trouble. Maybe I'll do him a little bit later. So I think that's where I'm going to close out this session. Thanks for hanging out. If you liked the video, please like it. It helps a lot. And also on that train of thought, if you're enjoying these pseudo live sessions, these sketchbook sessions, please consider subscribing. It would be very helpful. But again, if no pressure. Thank you guys. Have a great rest of your day. Have a good one, y'all. See you soon.